To sort a bulleted or number list is really easy, and when it sorts, generally speaking, it takes the first letter of each item in the list and sorts it ascending or descending. Now you may ask, why would anyone want to sort a numbered list with its hierarchical structure in place, 1 being the most important, followed by 2, 3, and so on? Well, it also gives us the total number of items in the list. So if I don't care about what's the most important, that means I can go ahead and sort it from A to Z. Well, in this case, G is the highest in the alphabet, so Ghost Stories would be up at the top and then down to Sleeping Bag. And if I did it the other way, descending, then Ghost Stories would be at the bottom. And then the only thing I cared about is how many items I need to take camping. Because it's numbered, I just have to look at the last item in the list and go, oh, we need a total of 5. So to be able to go ahead and sort my numbered list here, you need to select all the items within the list, because if you don't and you click anywhere within it, watch what happens. If I come up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group, and there it is, Sort, when I click on it, it does two things. First of all, it selects everything within the document, and I don't want to sort everything. I want to sort by selection, so I need to make sure that I select those items that I want to sort by. And then second of all, it brings up the Sort Text window, which I'm not going to customize it because I don't have what I want selected to be sorted. To do that, let me click Cancel and select the items that I want sorted, and then come back up here to the paragraph group and click on A to Z. Now, with the Sort By, I'm going to work from left to right. So what do we want to sort by? Click on the drop-down arrow. You got 3 options: paragraphs, headings, and field 1. First of all, your paragraphs, we know that, let me click Cancel, when you turn on your codes here, that anytime you see a paragraph marker, that's a paragraph. So when it sorts by paragraph, it looks at the first letter within the paragraph, and it says we're going to sort by that letter. So G for Ghost Stories, that's the highest in the alphabet here, or on the ascending side, so it'll put it up at the top, followed by the M, and then the P's, and then the S's. So let's come back up here, click on A to Z. We also have headings. Now headings are the heading styles that you apply to the paragraphs. So if you have heading 1 applied to that paragraph, heading 2 applied to the next paragraph, and you want to sort by headings, well, heading 1 is going to be first if you do ascending, if you select ascending, and then you want to flip that where your, heading 2 and 3s come first, then flip it by doing descending, going the other way. So before we go over there, which we just covered, in any case, the last option is field 1. Now the field 1 is tied to your options, because how does Microsoft Word know that you've got one field in each item? Why not 2, 3, or 4 or more? Well, when you look at the options, see if this makes sense. You have what are called delimiters, or special characters that Word is looking at. Like right now, it's looking at tabs. How many tabs do you see with the show hide codes on are in each item here in the list? We just have 1. So whatever comes over to the right of that is going to be the first field. We can also do it by commas. So if we select that, it's going to look for any commas within the list here, and it doesn't find any, so we won't be able to sort it by field. Or we can choose something that's another special character that separates what you have for each paragraph here in your list on each item. So I think the best way to explain this is to click Cancel and close out and look at the bulleted list, because we can go ahead and sort by field, and how many fields within the bulleted list is dependent upon what delimiter we choose. Because if we choose to sort by field using the delimiter tab, we've got 1 and we've got 2. So this would be the first field that comes after the first tab, and that would be the second field coming after the second tab. So we can sort it by their names. The first field, so looks at the first letter within the field and sorts the whole entire bulleted list by the first letter in the first field, or we can jump to the second field and sort by the first letter, or in this case, the cities within the second field. And then you've got the commas, and so if we choose commas as the delimiter, how many commas do we have? We've got 1, we've got 2. Let's see if this makes sense. What comes before the first comma would be the first field, and then what comes after the first comma? You've got a second field before it hits the next comma, and then coming after the second comma is going to be your third field. Well, let's go ahead and take a look and see if it makes sense. To be able to sort by fields for the bulleted list, we need to select it. Then come back up here and click on the Sort command, and then come down here and choose Options, and you can see the default is tabs. So when I click Cancel and click on the drop-down arrow, we better have 2 fields, because there's the first tab. Then after their names, we have a tab that goes over to the city and state. So you can sort by the first letter in the first field or the first letter in the second field. If I change that and I say I want to be able to separate my fields by comma, then that allows me to go ahead and let's click cancel so we can see it, to look at the first letter in the first field, which is sorting by the last name, or I can sort by the first name because that's the first letter in the second field, or I can sort by the first letter in the state, which is the third field. So depending upon your special characters, and in this case, commas, we get more fields to sort by, more options. Oh, what the heck, we already have this selected, so let's sort the bulleted list. Let's do it by the first letter of the first name. So that would be setting the delimiter as being comma, so it can define the first field, and we're going to sort by the first letter of the second field. So come back up here, click on A to Z, click on the drop-down arrow, and you can see we only have 2 fields. Why is that? Because our options defaults back to tabs. We want to do it by commas, so we can get 3 fields. Click OK. Click on the drop-down arrow. We want to go to the second field. We're going to sort it by the first letter, and the type here is by text, number, or date. So right now all we have in the second field is text. If we had a bunch of numbers, we could do that, or by date. So we'll keep it as text, and then let me click and drag and move this over. Right now it's set to descending, so A, that's the first letter in the alphabet. So Andrew, if we do descending, would be down at the bottom, and then Simon would be up at the top. So let's go ahead and click OK and see what happens. Ooh, there we go. Isn't that fun? So, okay, we did something a bit more complex by going to the bulleted list because you have all those different fields you can sort by. If you want to go back to something simple, be sure to select your list, click A to Z, and you can sort by paragraphs. I mean, there's no sense in sorting by fields because we only have 1 field. So you can sort by field or paragraphs, it doesn't matter. Because we don't have any special characters, well, you could technically say the space is a character, but that gets a little bit too deep. And so we can go ahead and say sort ascending, and then click OK. And so Ghost Stories would be up at the top. One last thing, let me go ahead and work with our bulleted list here. Come back up, click on A to Z. You have where my list has a header row. That means that you've got 1 row above it that has a name for each of the columns or fields. So if I click cancel and I came up here and I hit enter, and then I got some space so I can go ahead and type something and say, okay, this is name, and I want to make that part of the bulleted list down below. So after I type it, come back up here in the paragraph group and click on bullets. So now it's part of it. And then I tab, but only goes so far. To keep it organized, I want it to go all the way over to, well, the beginning of the cities here. So I need to put a tab stop. Just come up here and click on the horizontal ruler. And when you click, I haven't let go of the mouse button until I get it lined right with the other cities. Then I can let go, and then we can type in place. And if you don't know anything about the tabs, everything I'm doing here assumes that you watched the previous training videos on tabs and creating our list items. So in any case, you can see that I got a label for each column here. Well, looking at it, it's for each column, but when we look at it from the sorting feature, it's going to be by field. So if I go ahead and click and drag and select everything here, come back up, click on sort A to Z, and I want to do it by paragraphs. Remember, the option always defaults back to tabs. So let me click cancel. So how many tabs do we have? We've got 1. There's the first field, then 2, and what comes after that? The second field. So if I want to sort it by place, notice that it doesn't list place, it just lists the first field and the second field unless you select my list has a header row. And you want to do that because if you don't, it's going to sort this heading row, the labels, with all the other items. And you don't want names sorted down here somewhere, do you? Oh, not me. So I'm going to go ahead and say sort the header row. That means that the first row in the list of selection is not going to be sorted. And then you can click on the drop down arrow and hey, it actually looks at that and says, I know what the name is now. Instead of field 1, it's called name. And instead of field 2, it's called place. So it makes it easier for me conceptually to look at this and go, oh, place. Yeah, I want to sort it by place, of course. And when it does that, it's going to look at the first letter in the cities down below, and it's going to do it ascendingly and click okie dokie. And there we go. The C up at the top all the way down to the last letter or close to the end of the alphabet, the T's. So if I come back up here and do it again, and I don't choose the header row, and I sort by the second field and do descending and do OK, the labels have been sorted, as I just mentioned. That would be a boo-boo.